channel is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Watching 100 Movies. I am Christiana Ellis.
And I am Mike Mateen.
Tonight, we are watching some classic Kevin Williamson horror with three of the movies that were kind of what he would. Well, I guess it's complicated because he became known for two things first, and then these the latter two movies that we're talking about were kind of after. So he wrote Scream. That was the big first thing. But then he also was doing Dawson's Creek during the same
Yes.
period that these other two movies came out. We're not talking about Dawson's Creek, though. We're talking about Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and The Faculty.
Yes. And just as a reminder, the reason that sort of prompted this is that he has a new Netflix drama called The Waterfront that is actually, I thought was pretty good.
Hmm.
Um, that he was not necessarily the writer, but the executive producer, showrunner behind. So it just got me thinking about Kevin Williamson movies. And
Hmm. Well, so anyone who doesn't sort of live in both of the film and TV worlds might not realize that, like, of course, he had, the movies like the three we're going to talk about tonight. But then, in addition to Dawson's Creek, he was also developed the show that became the Vampire Diaries, which,
yep.
again, is one of those things where people who don't live in genre spaces might not be aware that that show is a huge deal for a long time. I, as someone who goes to sci-fi conventions periodically, knows there's a lot of people who were there for the Vampire Diaries stuff, and then a variety of other shows that have been running throughout. And so, I mean, he's been, you know, active ever since. Guy continues to work. But so yes, uh, as you mentioned, that was kind of what had you thinking about these movies, and so let's get into it. It's also kind of funny to note something that I had not realized when we decided to do this, which was that I Know What You Did Last Summer is getting a Lego sequel this summer, which I think actually did that come out already? I think it did. I think it just came out.
It might have just come out. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't see it, but I did watch the first one here. But before we get to that, let's just do them in order. I think is what makes sense to me. Let's
That
talk
makes
about Scream, the 1996 one, not the sequel that they decided to just call the first thing again, because that's a franchise thing now.
Yes. So Scream, God, it's such a joy of a movie. I think at least, and I had forgotten, we were so focused on Kevin Williamson, I'd forgotten that Wes Craven did directed the first
Hmm.
Scream.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you've got a guy, it's a, it's like this is like almost like the definition of like meta, right? Like it's a movie
Yeah.
that's making fun of these kinds of movies while also being a very, very good version of these movies,
Hmm.
directed by a guy who they're making fun of almost.
Yeah.
Like, he's making fun of his own style movies in this movie. Like and it all works, right? Like obviously there's some hammy pieces to it, which were, you know, even more recognizable now after having seen Scary Movie.
Hmm.
The Wayans brothers really like
Yeah.
leaned in on some of the parts that are a little over the top, but that's
Well,
what these movies are, right?
yeah,
Like,
I think just to jump in on that, I think it was something that it's interesting because I think lots of times when something is doing a really kind of new flavor, people aren't always completely ready for it. But like this movie, which is like people knew at that time, they knew parodies, right? People knew what parodies were. And so there were lots of times where, okay, well, if you're sending up some genre, then you make a parody. And then people certainly, but the idea of a highly produced, like not just some B movie, um, that is kind of a loving send up at the same time that, like, it's a commentary on the tropes at the same time that it's using the tropes, and it's not only making fun of it, it's also doing it. It was something that I don't think was very common before. Although it's worth noting, for people who haven't seen it, that Wes Craven was actually not entirely unfamiliar with that flavor, because he did Wes Craven's New Nightmare a few years before this, which is not quite the same, but has some common elements, because that one it's one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, sort of. But in that movie, what happens is the people who made those movies start struggling with the idea that Freddy has somehow made the leap from the movies to real life. And so it's got, like, the actors who had been in those movies and himself as the director dealing with Freddy having come to real life. And so there's definitely some line blurring and meta stuff going on in that one too. But it's definitely not quite the same flavor as Scream. So it's a really interesting mesh of the two here. And one of the things that I think is also going to be fun to discuss here is we have not in the past centered episodes on screenwriters. Usually it's like the director. Maybe the director is sometimes also the screenwriter. But in this case, I think we have a really interesting trio of movies that highlight you can have screenplays written by the same guy, but the different directors are going to produce different things out of them.
I agree. I was thinking the same thing too. Like, and they're all very good examples of the director's works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a great use of Wes Craven's talents,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um, sorry, the faculty is, when you realize it's Robert Rodriguez, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, this makes sense, right?
I think it's notable, and I was going to say the same thing, but that you went ahead and you said Wes Craven, Robert Rodriguez. You kind of just didn't mention the one in the middle, which
Right.
the director is Jim Gillespie. He's done other movies, but I think of the trio of these movies, I think we probably know which one we're ranking third.
Yes. And but like you said, when you watch these together, like you see Kevin Williamson's like impact on it, but you can see when you have a less, I don't want to say less talented director, it's a different level of director, right? That's
Yeah.
on the movie. And he was trying to do something a little bit different. Like, he was trying to make a very mainstream horror movie so that it's very light on the gore, which I had almost forgotten until you kind of watch it and you're like, it's almost
Mm-hmm.
off-putting how little there is, right? Like
Yeah.
it,
Well, especially compared to Scream and The Faculty, which are not light on the gore at all.
right. In fact, yeah, the faculty is it's Robert Rodriguez, so like some of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff is really tuned up, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
but
think
yes,
it's actually easy to forget too, if you haven't watched Scream in a while, that it actually has quite a bit of gore on screen. Um, I think the most dramatic, of course, is right at the beginning, but that sets the tone for sure.
yes, and I think, I mean, the beginning is, I mean, we should cover the opening, right? Like
Yeah, I
it's
mean
the
that whole
classic. Yeah.
segment is practically it's just like it's its own little short film that sets the tone for everything else. But it's it's the first thing everyone saw, and then it's well. Go ahead, you were.
Well, it's the first thing everyone saw. But it's also the top billed actress
Mm-hmm.
dies in the first 5 minutes of the movie, which,
Yeah.
you know, I think this was probably even more dramatic. I mean, we weren't as tuned in at the time, but like that's what Spielberg did in Jaws, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he took, like, we didn't know that she was the highest billed actor in Jaws at the time, but like that was a thing, right?
Wait,
Is that they killed her right out the gate, right? And
in Jaws?
so,
What?
yeah, the synchronized swimmer was my understanding was actually like one of the more famous actresses that was in that movie at the time.
Oh,
She
okay. I
she
mean, you
had
might be right. I did not know that.
yeah, she just had didn't have the longevity of like some of the other ones, partly because of Jaws, you know. But that was my understanding, is that she was. a well-known actress, and it was surprising to have her killed right at the beginning of the movie. So similar to that, Drew Barrymore is obviously who we're talking
Do
about,
you
but
mean the girl who gets eaten at the beginning?
the synchronized swimmer, yeah, I thought
Why are you calling her a synchronized swimmer?
because she was doing synchronized swimming when she got bit by the shark, remember?
Oh, well, okay, except she's also swimming by herself. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's not
That's
obvious
the
to
part I
me.
remember is that she's
Okay.
doing like, the synchronized swimming
She
leg
does a
thing.
fancy little dive thing, that's sure. Okay. But I
It's
I was thrown by synchronized swimmer when she's by herself. So, okay. Yeah, okay. We don't need to necessarily get back into Jaws. I
yeah,
was not
sorry.
aware of that. I was thinking the analog was Psycho with Vivian Lee, although of course that happens further in than it does here. But it was a similar thing in the sense that the movie was marketed with her as the lead.
Correct. I was going to go there too. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. So, but that part aside, like you said, it's a little mini movie, but it sets the tone, and it's the most famous part because
Mm-hmm.
you've got the phone call with the voice
Mm-hmm.
modulator, the quizzing her on horror movies,
Mm-hmm.
with the famous one of like the Friday the 13th, reminding everybody that like Jason wasn't the killer in the first one, it was his
Mm-hmm.
mother. And like these are all, I mean, just super like genre specific things that this
Yeah, I think it's such a well chosen example because I think it is simultaneously a deal or it's simultaneously a detail that a lot of people will feel smart for knowing, right? Because I
Mhm.
think that obviously there's going to be people who just don't know it, right? But there's going to also be a significant number of people who are going to get to feel smart because they did know that detail.
Right,
And then it's also kind of playing on the type of person who is excited to know a detail like that.
right.
Hmm.
It's just, yeah, it hits on all of those levels. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, and because this whole section, I didn't pull up the trailers, the original trailers, but if my recollection is that this whole section, like most of the trailer, was this stuff because it was really trying to play up the idea that like this is a a Drew Barrymore movie. But yeah, so we get the talk about horror movies within this horror movie, including like really named specifics, um, which is just again like it's setting the tone right away that this is a horror movie that's aware of horror movies.
Yes. So phenomenal opening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know we could cover this movie beat by beat, and we don't want to do that. So how do you kind of want to
Well, so I think
take the
that
discussion?
the
Yeah.
I remember seeing this movie as a free screening on my college campus, which they did periodically, and that's how I first saw this one. It was that it was like an advanced screening, like the week before it was wide release or something like that, because I don't think it was in main theaters yet, but it was um, exciting at that time, just because again it was one where going in to see it, like I had no idea. Um, I I didn't know anything about it when I it's like, oh, it's like a horror movie. Okay, I'll see that. And so I just remember just really being exhilarated by it at the time. Um, ironically, the bit that we were just talking about, this idea of promoting Drew Barrymore, um, ironically, I didn't especially know who she was, and so like that piece of it really had no impact on me beyond just the fact that she's good in the role, and it's like the whole opening sequence works even if you don't have that extra layer of knowing that she's supposedly the biggest star.
And you actually got me thinking, sorry, I just should go back and correct this.
Mm-hmm.
I was misremembering why the scene in Jaws was important, and she wasn't the top billed actress. That's why the synchronized swimming thing threw me off. It's that my mom was familiar with her being a synchronized swimmer because she is
Okay.
actually a stunt woman known for swimming work, but was a former synchronized swimmer. So she's
Oh,
actually not
okay.
very well known. She was just very well known to my mother.
Yeah,
I
there you go.
conflated it. My mistake.
Well, okay, that's good clarification, but it's also like, it's she's uh notable in certain specific circles.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Vivian Lee is the more accurate um, comparison for what Scream was doing. But anyway, we can move on now.
Yeah.
You
But
already have.
I think the other piece that's just notable about this opening sequence though is that it does start fun, and it's kind of like, oh, we're knowing and we're winking and we're playing with it, but then it kind of, I think, in a well done way, turns it actually scary, which is
Yes.
so important for what this movie is doing. It can't just be a whole joke the whole time. Even if you're going to have jokes throughout, it's so important that you make it, you sell the scary part too. And having Drew Barrymore in that role is kind of like, it's dual purpose, because you get the sort of meta level piece of it, the shock that she's killed, but you also just get that she's a really great actress. She's a movie star and she can sell the shit out of this scene,
Yes.
right? And then on top of that, like all of the extra little details, like her parents getting home when she is just getting stabbed. She's like, like 20 yards away from them as they walk in the house, and they try to they realize that someone's broken in, so they try to call the police, but she's still on the phone because she never hung up, and so they hear her, and then of course the gore of that whole sequence is just like, it's so intense. And so when we say that it sets the tone, it's not just establishing this meta layer that's going to be throughout, but it like trying to really sell, like, no, this is scary though. You're not supposed to be laughing at this part.
Yeah. I mean, the turn she sells it because she's talking to the voice modulator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then obviously like Wes Craven, and there's some music and some cuts and stuff like, but when it's going from this like silly horror movie quiz, like I'm almost kind of flirty with like,
Mm-hmm.
this creep who's this goofy creep who's just
Mm-hmm.
being weird, and to the like when he asks her name and she goes, well, why do you want to know my name? And she's still kind of flirty. He
Yeah.
goes, because I want to know who I am looking
Right.
at.
Yeah.
Just like that shift. And then, yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend being tied up and slashed at the pool. Like all of a
Right.
sudden, the beats start coming.
Yeah.
You, there's, you don't find spoiler warnings. Obviously, the movie was made in '96,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't you're not sure whether like there's some cool things where she like walks outside and does some weird pan, like she walks down the edge of the porch and it's like someone could have snuck in behind.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's a reasonable belief when he jumps out of the closet at her, but then of course we find out later there are actually two of them, which is why
Right.
they can
Well,
do this. Yeah.
I wanted to get back onto that too, in a moment, but this is perhaps just a real tangent, but I think it's just indicative of the attention to detail. Is that I think it is, even in 1996 when this was made, I have to think it was weird for her to be making the stovetop version of popcorn. Like, it's one thing for people to make their own popcorn, but it's another thing to buy the kind that sort of has the foil and you cook it on the stovetop and it goes like, that's, I think that was a weird thing at the time, but of course what it's needed for is to catch fire later, right?
Right.
So I think at the same time you need it functionally for the fire because they want to have a reason. But that could have been knocking over a candle, right? You could have had a fire start anyway, lots of ways. But I think just the tactile, like the detail, even if it's a little weird that she's doing it that way, doing it while they're talking about these older classic horror movies and popcorn specifically, like they're talking about eating popcorn at the movies on the phone, and just like the detail is just, I think, interesting that they chose this thing that would be at in 1996 probably just old fashioned enough that most people still kind of, oh yeah, I know that way to do it, but everybody makes it in a microwave now. But I wonder if today you would have a lot of younger viewers just looking at that and saying, what even is that? Why would you do it that way?
Exactly.
But yeah, so back to the thing that you were just saying, I think the reveal, of course, is the big twist at the end, that there were actually two killers, I think is interesting to rewatch the movie knowing, because you start trying to figure out, okay, when is it each of the two killers, right? And it's clear the movie has some attention to detail there in terms of actually tracking, because you can actually, because Matthew Lillard is bigger than Skeet Ulrich, and so
Yeah.
like you can actually kind of get the sense in some of the scenes, like once it's kind of like, okay, which of them is this one?
Right.
um
And there's a
uh
couple of this being one of them.
mhm.
And I think there's maybe one other where it's when you go back and rewatch, like it's clear that they're both participating.
Yeah. This
Like,
one in particular, it's clear that part of the trick of guess which door I'm at is that one of them is at each door,
right.
right? And just the details, the logistics of what it takes. But part of the value of a murder mystery like this, in having two, is that you can set up red herrings and then alibis for both of them.
Yep. That's
Um,
part of the fun of this whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah. And it does, and that's why my point was about the long pan as she walks down the
Mm-hmm.
porch, is you don't see anybody enter behind her at the porch. They don't trick, but there's enough reasonable suspicion that like you're not already figured out that there's two of them, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just this
But
guy is clever enough to get around however she's maneuvering, as opposed to there's just two of them doing whatever they want. Yeah.
this movie is playing with the audience's expectations for what sorts of things happen in these movies. And so by deliberately having the camera follow her away from where the door would be when she's not looking that way is setting us up to say, oh, I wonder if someone's sneaking in behind her right now. Right. And it's playing with that in a very conscious way, which I think is really exciting. Related to the pan, though, one thing, just as a weird sort of directorial thing that I'm not sure I've noticed in Wes Craven before, but maybe he's done it elsewhere. But there are several scenes in this movie that are using a weird lens, and I'm not enough of a camera expert to know to be able to like say what kind of lens it is, but it's a lens that keeps what the action or the actor in the very center of frame in total like focus, but everything else is distorted just a little bit. And it's not even that you would notice the distortion except when the camera is panning across the room to follow the person, where they look completely normal, but if you're looking at the room around them, it's kind of distorted, like she's at the bottom of a bowl
Right.
and everything else is kind of distorted around her. And I thought it was just a really interesting effect that I hadn't kind of noticed before. But yeah, not that it's necessarily important. I on this watch, I really noticed it happening multiple times. But yeah, so I think throughout the movie we get a pretty well crafted setup of uh, a dynamic where we have lots of different sort of supporting cast characters and lots of little clues to try to suggest various possible red herrings. Is it the principal? Is it the chief of police? Because the chief of police wears the same kind of boots that we see the Ghostface, where at one point we see Principal waving the scissors around, and all of these little things where it kind of suggests, well, could it be? We don't know. That's the whole thing, is that it's like it could be anyone. Because they establish early on that the costume is like cheap and easy to obtain at any different store, and so you have stupid high school kids able to just go buy one as a prank, to make fun of the whole thing. And that whole dynamic is interesting. But let's talk a little bit about the cast, unless you're
I
feeling
just
like.
had one last thing to say on the opening that I had
Mm-hmm.
read, like, kind of in preparation for this, is that I guess the producers, when they were getting the dailies, because they were still trying to figure out what the mask was going to be and all that. I
Mm-hmm.
think we all kind of know the history of that and how that wasn't this wasn't originally what they had started. This is what they ended up with. But they weren't real happy with the dailies. They were considering moving away from Craven, but they let him complete the full opening with like a temporary editing and music score and all that type of stuff. And when they saw the opening and completion, not at full film quality, but like done correctly, they I think the quote from was Bob Weinstein,
Mm.
so not Harvey, although I think he was involved, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, said,
Hard to get away from him at this time period.
yeah, the quote was, "What do I know about the dailies? Keep on going." Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, like, Craven sold the movie, sold himself and the movie by completing this opening sequence. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's how powerful this thing was, is that when they weren't sure, this made them sure, you
Yeah.
know.
It's interesting, I think, how some filmmakers, more than others, it might be the case where if you were to just look at like the dailies, which would tend to be like, imagine just if you did 10 cuts of any given shot, it would just be all of those in a row, and then whatever the next shot was, right? So looking at something like that without any kind of editing in it, or even knowing what shot they might want to choose out of the however many are there, um, do the dailies give a real indication of what the actual movie is going to be like, or is it something where you really kind of do need to see something cut together and assembled to have any real idea? Uh, but I think it's interesting that all three of these movies ended up with like good casts, like in
Mhm.
the sense of people who like went on to keep working, to greater and lesser degrees. Like obviously, Drew Barrymore, already a star. Nev Campbell had already been on like TV, right? Courtney Cox was on Friends at this time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so she was like it was like season 3 of Friends was airing when this came out, so she's already like big star, but like from TV. But then Rose McGowan, who kind of became a bigger star, but then didn't for a while for some of the reasons that we were just talking about. In terms of she was involved in some of the getting blacklisted because she made powerful men impatient and frustrated with her. So she was kind of one of the people whose careers didn't go as far as they maybe should have because of bad behavior from directors and producers and so on.
Yeah.
But like Skeet Ulrich, like Matthew Lillard never became like I don't like he never became like a lead, but he sure did continue to get character work for a long time. Uh, One note about his character, I am stunned every time I rewatch this movie at just how unlikable his character is. He's just the worst in every scene. I mean, in a way that I find entertaining to watch, but in a way that I just sort of feel like this guy would be a nightmare to hang out with. Not Lillard himself, but the character.
Yes. I feel less strongly, but generally like get the same vibe from Ryan Philippe, and I Know What You Did Last
Yeah,
Summer.
you know what? I was gonna say the same thing when we got
He just
there.
seems like a douche. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like ugh. Um, yeah, the difference I would make between the two though is that I have liked Matthew Lillard in other things, whereas Ryan Philippe, I kind of just have always like every time he's on screen in anything, I just sort of go like, really? I this guy does not work for me. And it's not even like a bad actor thing. It's just like bad energy when he's on screen.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of why his like marriage didn't work, right? Like
Mm.
she had such a different like trajectory, right?
Who is his? I guess I'm feeling like
But was he married to Sarah Michelle Gellar?
maybe was he? Um, I thought,
I might be wrong on this again.
um, I thought, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Freddie Prinze Jr. that was married Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I think he married Reese Witherspoon. That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So that I was gonna say I feel
That's what I
like
was
I
thinking.
know Sarah Michelle Gellar enough that I didn't think it was her.
No, he married Reese Witherspoon. So even
Yeah.
more dramatic, right?
Mm,
Like, you know.
yeah. Um, but so I think I maybe we don't have to go beat by beat in Scream because I think it's especially since it's one that I think probably of the three it's probably the most seen of these. Certainly, I think holds up. I have not watched the whole franchise. I have more than once tried to say I'm going to rewatch and then watch the ones that I haven't seen of the Scream franchise. Every time a new one comes out, it says I want to get caught up on the Scream movies, and I've stalled out on three every time. So I've seen 1 through 3 like 3 times each, and then I kind of just can't keep going after Scream 3.
Yeah. I like I like two.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think I've watched any past. I mean, I saw three at one point, and you're right,
Mm.
same thing. I've never really gone past that.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard good things about some of them. But yeah, in any case, though, Scream is good. I like that it has a couple of the, um, it gets to finish on the one last big joke, which is that like this is the part where the killer comes back for one last scare, and then he goes, "Wah!" and they just shoot him in the head again. It's such a great final beat for that whole thing, but also just the once the killers have revealed themselves, that whole final climactic sequence is just electrifying. Like I feel like the energy that's in those scenes feels like no other movie I can think of, or at least certainly at the time. I think there have been other movies trying to, coast off of this one. But just this idea of them explaining their whole deal, the two of them bouncing off of each other, the the unhingedness of their whole plan, including the bits where they're just so psyched on their own energy that they're doing the part where they stab each other before they've taken care of everybody else, which seems the wrong sequence if they want to succeed in their plan. But they're
Yeah.
just so into it, and I think that they actually both do kind of hate each other a little bit, even though they're partners in crime. Both of them, I think, kind of don't want to be a partner. They want to be the one, right? Um, so I think there's a little bit where when they're doing the stab each other thing, they're both not being as careful as they could be. Um, and but then that whole bit where like the argument with them, and then they're distracted and she gets away, and then they're mad because she's being the scary lurking killer now. All of that stuff is just incredible. I mean, I think it's just a fantastic climax. That
Yes.
Yeah.
And all the little attentions to detail, like the TV truck that is running on a delay,
Mm-hmm.
the way it plays with that, like there's just so much good for as like again, if you like kind of remove yourself as like hammy and silly as this could be, right? Like
Hmm.
them giving away like but that's the joke, right? Like and you have to kind of like just play into that, right? Like they're
Yeah.
giving away the entire like plot
Hmm.
while bleeding out, right?
Yeah.
Like to your point, they're in the wrong sequence. Like it's eh, like you can see why it can be made fun of, but it's also just so much fun to watch with just that
Hmm.
open mind of like let's just take this in for what it is, right? And like
Yeah.
and I think that's some of Matthew Lillard's like best work in this movie when he's just like I I think you might have got me a little deep, Billy.
Yeah.
I'm losing
My
a lot of
parents
blood
are gonna
here.
be so mad
My
at
parents are gonna be
me.
so mad at me.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, like
Yeah.
when he's
It's.
kind of in that woozy
Hmm.
state, like trying to like it just it's weird to say, but it's like
Yeah.
the most likable he is in the movie,
Yeah.
right? When
Well,
yeah.
it's because it's the first time he's showing any vulnerability at all, right? Like I think that's what makes him so sort of repellent earlier in the movie, even when he's kind of supposed to be like one of this group of friends, right? Is just that he's such an asshole. And he's just never giving anything up. He's never sort of acknowledging any fear or worry or even concern. He's always joking about everything and making fun of everybody. And so it's like it's not until then that we see him express any sort of I don't have full control of this emotion, um, which is just like so I agree. I mean, I think that's the first time he almost like he feels like a person at all, even though it's of course at a point where we're feeling like this guy is just this is not a person that you can have any sort of a rational conversation with. It's he's completely off the off the deep end.
Yeah.
Um, and and it's interesting too that as much as it's almost played like a joke where like his motivation is peer pressure, I'm very impressionable. You get the feeling that like although he's probably a psychopath or a sociopath in the sense that he doesn't seem to have any concern for any other human being, he didn't necessarily have the initiative to start a plan like this without just the like deep rageful misogyny of the Skeet Ulrich character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like yeah. So in any case, that whole sequence I think is just incredible, and I think it is a testament to the directing capabilities of Wes Craven that there are so many moving pieces in that final sequence where we have to have an understanding of the geography of the house. We have to understand who all of these people are and what their pre-existing relationship is to one another. And just the fact that we have two killers and Sydney and Courtney Cox and Jamie Kennedy and Sydney's dad all kind of in different parts of the house at the same time over about a 10-minute span, and it just all works. We're never confused. We're occasionally left going, where are they? But that's the suspense. It's not a wait a minute, where'd they go? I don't understand what's happening. It's always just like, oh, this is exciting because we don't know. So incredible, good. I like it.
Yeah. I think just kind of the last thing that I thought was interesting to kind of revisit as we were talking about this was just again reading up on some of this stuff. The fact that it was released at Christmas
Hmm.
and that it took a lot of criticism for that, but it was like it was meant as like counter programming, right? Like for
Mm-hmm.
teenagers who didn't want to go watch the normal holiday fare, and
Mm.
it worked. I mean, I think the movie would have worked whenever, just because of the strength that it has, but
Yeah. Well,
it was just an interesting thing. Yeah,
it was word of mouth, right? Like it was like it wasn't even necessarily that the opening weekend was so big. It's just that it really stuck around because people kept saying, "Oh, I know what you might think about slasher movies, but go see this one."
right. Which
Yeah.
then the reason I bring that up is that it leads directly into our next one,
Mm-hmm.
where because of the success of Scream,
Mm-hmm.
they like fast tracked this movie,
Yeah,
right?
it was the studio saying, "Make us another one of those.
Right. And
Do
he
it
already
again."
kind of had it in product. He already kind of had it going.
Yeah.
So they were like, get it done. Let's get it out,
Well, because the thing is, it's not it's as we kind of touched on briefly when we picked these, but technically it wasn't next. So like or Scream 2 was happening at like the same time. So this and Scream 2 both came out in 1997.
Yep.
So I think that as I think this has a lot of the Kevin Williamson stuff that we like. I think it's not as solid a pitch because it's in many ways a much more just straightforward slasher movie without necessarily the same kind of meta awareness or commentary. I think it tries to do that a little bit, but I think it kind of just becomes almost an example of the kind of movie that Scream is kind of making fun of a little bit.
Yes.
For anyone who has not seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, it has another good cast with Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Ryan Philippe, as previously mentioned. Also, Johnny Galecki, Leonard from Big Bang Theory before he was on that show, gets to get a hook through the jaw. But we've got it's folk horror stuff. We're set up with this idea. We have a conversation where the kids have all heard different versions of the campfire story about the guy with the hook, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the part where you sort of feel like the movie's reaching for something. This idea of these folk stories that are maybe they're always based on a little bit of truth or something. But I think the rest of the movie just doesn't really deliver on that promise. I think that even before he's revealed, the fisherman is just not a terribly compelling slasher. I think that it's almost like the movies that make fun of the slow walking slasher killer, except that it's just playing it straight.
Yeah.
None of the kills are especially great. Maybe Sarah Michelle Gellar's is okay, even though we kind of don't get to see the end of it because we have to get the jump scare for her body later. And then I don't know, what do you think about that whole climactic sequence on the boat?
I mean, it's again, it's almost like what we talked about. Like it feels rushed, right? Like just everything about this movie feels rushed. Like we're gonna have this red herring of Ray, maybe because he's the one who was like visiting all of these people.
Yeah.
But then it's not Ray. It is actually still the fisherman that we always thought it was going to be. And then he saves her and they reconcile immediately once she realizes he's not the killer. And then
I find it interesting that rushed is the term you used because I almost felt like this movie can't get on with it.
I meant rushed in like how it was put, like how it was written.
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah, sure. So
Not
I guess
rushed
like
in its
I feel
pacing.
like
Yeah.
so what I was going to say about that climactic sequence is it's obvious they put a lot of time and effort into the sets of the ship and just the actual logistics of what part of the ship are they in now and what does it look like here and how are they moving around the different parts of the boat. I thought it's clear they put a lot of like thought into that element of it, but the actual sequence just feels like it goes on forever.
Yeah.
And in a similar fashion, although I think the sort of the basic details of the initial accident where they hit the guy with the car, They think he's dead. They have the whole argument about what they're going to do, but then they have to go and like take him to like to try to get rid of the body. It turns out he's not completely dead. I feel like on paper, the details of how all that works feel like they're pretty well considered, but just in practice, those scenes feel like they take twice as long as they should.
Yeah, I think we're feeling the same thing, but when I was using the term rushed was like rushed to production, right?
Yeah,
Like
everything
they
feels
don't
like the most basic version of what this could be.
right, like they just needed to get this out, so they didn't edit it right. They didn't
Hmm.
like tighten it up. Yeah. So we're feeling the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's just I think that there's I don't want to say it's completely juiceless, but certainly coming at it right after watching Scream is not does not make it look good by comparison. Um, it's I think it's just feels so much more by the numbers. It feels very much like the kind of slasher movie that Scream is kind of making fun of.
Yes, because like you even see it like just in the production of it, right? And this is where like I was kind of being somewhat critical of the director, right?
Hmm.
Like not that we're gonna go back and watch it again, but if you didn't pick up on it, like to your point about like Wes Craven using very interesting camera lenses to like create this sort of distorted effect, this guy did like the opposite. Like every time Jennifer Love Hewitt is on camera, she's like soft and it's like soft lighting and like really like the shadowing of her
Hmm.
boobs. Like it's so slasher movie, right? Like of like we're just gonna make this girl so hot, right? And it it's weird. It was a weird effect when I was watching it and I was like, and that's one of the I guess the benefits of modern technology and having like these TVs that can do this. Like you can see what the original film looked like, right? And
Hmm.
it's odd. Like at least
Well,
I noticed that like
well, it's also
why
during
does
the
she look
part of the
different?
story where like the plot is that she looks terrible because she's been unable to sleep for a year.
Right. And yet she's in soft focus
Yeah.
with big, huge, perky boobs,
Like, well, we
like
can't let her actually look
right.
bad.
So it was just very, and I actually watched them in the other order. I actually watched I
Okay.
Know We Summer first,
Mm.
and that's part of what reminded me of like how true gore that Scream has is because this is so weak on that.
Mm-hmm.
There's these, like I said, these weird parts where like she almost looks like she's in a glamour photo, right? Like when they're shooting Jennifer Love Hewitt talking and
Mm-hmm.
she's they have her speaking in like that raspy voice. Like it doesn't none of it feels right watching it like 30 years later, right? It
Mm-hmm.
like feels to your point, even before watching Scream again, it feels like a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, just like to really sell that point, think about the very end of this movie, given everything that she has just done, climbing through the bilge chambers of this ship, like slopping through where like this ice the cooler cargo area, climbing through that, finding the dead bodies all over the place, running, jumping, sweating, fighting. And how does she look at the end? She looks like she just stepped off of a movie set.
yeah,
Like she, it's I think there is that is just there's not willing to have any of the actors actually look bad except literally the moments where there's like a dead body.
right.
Sarah Michelle, one has to wonder if there was any sort of push for that from the actress. You know what I mean? Like, was part of that her not wanting to look bad, or was it all the director's choice? Who knows? Um, Sarah Michelle Gellar, obviously, this was, I want to say, this was a little bit into Buffy. No, I take it back. Buffy started this year.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I was not aware of her when this movie came out because I actually didn't start watching Buffy until like season three. Um, she obviously, kept going from this as well. And I think that she acquits herself pretty well in this movie, especially given that she brings some depth and weight to a character that's kind of otherwise supposed to be the bimbo, right? I feel like we get some of that sadness of this idea that she was this beauty queen that thought she was gonna change the world through the medium of acting and that whole sort of thing. But then, of course, when we catch up with her a year later, she's just working at the same family department store, having tried and failed to make it in New York. Um, and I feel like we get that, right? Like I feel like there's some thematic meat there, like that she manages to sell. Freddie Prinze Jr. I think is not necessarily great in this. I think he's fine. I think he really found his muse as a voice actor later because he's been a voice actor for tons and tons of stuff since this. But I think he's better at that than he is in on camera. I think.
Yeah, I think he was like his sort of niche was that he could kind of be like the everyman, right? Like,
Mm,
but still be, he's still tall and fairly good looking, but like not so strikingly
mm-hmm.
that like you you can't relate to him. And so I think he found a lot of work in the 90s of being sort of this like idealistic everyman, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well, and like he continued to get a lot of work as tended to be like smaller stuff, and then into the mid 2000s really started doing more voice work. But like he was Fred in the Scooby Doo movies, right? He did stuff. He kept working, but yeah, I think I don't watch him in this and feel like yeah, there's a movie star. I don't know. I mostly just listen to his voice and I just think of him as in voice roles that I like him more in. In particular, Star Wars Rebels. He's Kanan Jarrus. He was in a bunch of video games. Like he's the Iron Bull and Dragon Age Inquisition. He's in Mass Effect 3. And so just people who didn't
this
necessarily know that
this was
that's
one
this
of his
guy.
like first movies.
Yeah, I'm looking at his thing right here. It's his fourth listed, but all three of those came out in 1997, and so to Jillian on her 37th birthday was 96, and then in 97 he was in this, and then The House of Yes and Sparkler. I don't know any of those movies. I think I've heard the title of To Jillian on her 37th birthday,
Yeah.
but I think this is probably his first like big role where he's like one of the central primary characters.
Yeah. And then obviously like She's All That is a
Mm-hmm.
big one for him.
Yeah.
Down to You was decent. Summer Catch.
I think Wing Commander is one of those movies that people making it were hoping was going to be a really big thing, and then it just was
Yeah.
not because it was terrible. Um, but yeah, so like I thought he was okay, but I don't know. I mean, I think we're at a little bit of a point of like flailing a little bit to say what do we want to say more about this one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote that we go ahead and switch over to The Faculty, which I like quite a bit more. So um, let's do that.
Agreed. And I'll just close out on saying I had fonder memories of this movie
Mm-hmm,
than watching this. And I think it was all, and that's why I noticed some of these things. Like,
mm-hmm.
I really liked Freddie Prinze Jr. in the late 90s. Like, I really like She's All That. I also recognize that, like, he's not awesome in that. Um, I
He's
liked
he's
Summer
doing
Catch.
what's asked of him in
Yeah,
that.
I liked Summer Catch to the point where, like,
Oh yeah.
even took my daughter to Cape Cod Baseball League, not because of Summer Catch only, but that's
Yeah.
what put it on that radar.
Yeah.
Was a Freddie Prinze Jr.
Okay,
movie,
there you go.
right?
Mhm.
Um, always liked Sarah Michelle Gellar. Um, and I always had kind of a teenage boy thing for Jennifer Love Hewitt, right? And so like to go back and watch it and realize, yes, I mean, yes, she's incredibly attractive, but like the way they just like leaned into it was odd.
Mm-hmm.
And then again to like realize they cut out all the gore. Not that I needed that, but it was like distractingly not there.
Hmm.
I was kind of like, man,
It did feel a little bit like an edited for TV version of
right?
a harder movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like just going back and rewatching it, like it was kind of disappointing because I felt like I had enjoyed it at the time because it was like again, like the rebirth of the slasher movies and all that, but it's not Scream and it doesn't hold up. And let's move on to the faculty.
Yeah, I was just actually double checking what it was rated. Was it still rated R? I think it probably was, but
It wouldn't be today.
yeah, I was just thinking that. That's why I was wanting to check. And I am not. It's not. I'm not getting the rating where I was hoping to just immediately look it up. Um, let's see. What you did last summer
It was
reading.
rated R.
Okay. I figured it probably was, but certainly I agree with you that today I think it would get a PG 13. Either that or what would happen is if it was made today, they would either edit it down enough to make it PG 13 or they would do the gore harder
Right.
instead of kind of splitting the difference here and still getting the R. Um, anyway, yeah, let's talk about the faculty, which I think I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've seen Scream so much and it's so talked about already that I felt myself feeling like I like the faculty the most of the three. I think you could probably make the case, certainly, that Scream is the more important movie, the more influential movie. But just in terms of the sheer amount of fun I was having watching it, I think I might like the faculty best.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to close out on I Know What You Did Last Summer with
Mm,
like that I remembered it better than how I enjoyed it here. This was not that I didn't remember the faculty fondly, but
mm,
I enjoyed the faculty more than I thought that I was going to rewatching it. And I knew I was going to enjoy it. I mean, I remembered it, but it's it's just so good and the cast like it's they they actually click the way that I think that they wanted the I Know What You Did Last Summer cast to click as like this group enduring this,
mm-hmm.
trauma and how they were going to respond to each other. But like
Yeah.
this movie, like the way that their group kind of forms, the way that they kind of move through everything, like it's they just play off each other so well. Like that's
Yeah.
part of the fun of this is like
Well,
main
this
character.
yeah, this movie is the Breakfast Club plus Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, that feels like that's the elevator pitch here. It's almost hard to imagine them not trying to sell it that way, right? Because it's so much what this movie is doing because it's assembling this group of characters together that are all very different. You've got the you know, the drug dealer burnout. You've got the nerd who's shy and is always getting beat up. You've got the queen bee girl. You've got the goth chick. You've got the new kid southern girl. And it's like they're all like representing different groups that wouldn't get along with each other, but then forcing them together by virtue. And it's like taking the first half hour of this movie to establish that they really don't like each other, you
Yeah.
know, and getting to that. But I have to say, when I was first watching this movie, I was enjoying it, but the scene that really made me say, I'm watching something special here, is the scene where they discover that the drugs that Josh Hartnett's character makes poison the aliens, and so they have to do their version of the Thing blood test, but by taking drugs. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yes. It is such a great like addition to the plot, you know,
Yes.
like
Well, and just to tie together all of the different things of like them dealing with real, like actual dangerous thing, horrible things, weird crazy aliens, and all of that, but then really actually layering onto it the stuff like Elijah Wood tries to get his parents to call the police, and they believe him at first, but he, because his story is just not like, they're not willing to believe him when the barest of cover-ups gets happened. Like the fact that he's saying, "Mom, I can tell the difference between one of my own dead teachers and a CPR dummy. I can tell the difference. I know which one it was. They're lying." But of course, just the teenage struggle of the parents who won't listen to you, that stuff getting actually layered onto this, and then this whole idea that the primary antagonists they're dealing with are the faculty, the authority figures, and so like one of the ways they can fight back is by taking drugs. It's just so fun. It's just like it's uh, and Robert Rodriguez is just obviously having a lot of fun making this movies. I'm not sure I've ever seen one of his movies that didn't feel that way. He just seems like he has a good time when he's making movies.
yes.
Includes just weird little flourishes, like a bit where one of the teachers, I don't remember what her character's name is, but the one played by Piper Laurie, uh, Mrs. Olson, has just said something threatening, I think, to the Elijah Wood character, and it just does this weird sort of like sudden zoom in and then jump back, just to highlight that line, and it's just this weird little like, why did the camera do that? Because it was kind of fun. That's all.
Yes.
um, One of the things that I think is neat rewatching this is that, of course, if you've seen it recently enough, kind of who the actual queen alien is. Oh, there's a good puppy. He's just checking to see if you're done recording yet.
Sort of. He's standing on the back of the couch like a
He
cat.
wants to see what you're doing. He wants to help. He has opinions about Josh Hartnett's early career.
He has opinions about wanting dinner.
Mm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
No, you're gonna have to wait till we're done, buddy.
Yeah. But it's interesting, I think, in a rewatch, it feels like they are really foreshadowing the reveal of who the alien queen is. Like when and you watch that character through this movie, and you're just going, boy, they're just really laying it on thick. But of course, part of what makes it fun is that there are, throughout the movie, occasional surprise reveals that aren't even that character.
Right.
So, like the fact, shoot, is it, where's this? Yeah, Jordana Brewster as Delilah. Like the reveal that she's one of the aliens in that scene in the garage that we're talking about. That one, like, definitely catches us off guard, I think. Like even as we're starting to maybe be suspicious of Laura Harris it plays Mary Beth. Like as
Yep.
we're getting suspicious of her because she's insisting, even though it had been established earlier on, it's like, I can't take the drugs, I'm allergic, right? And so as we're starting to say, hey, wait a minute, is she really gonna refuse? And that's, of course, when we get the surprise reveal of someone else. And of course, it's cribbing from the version of that scene in The Thing, but with enough of its own flavor going on that I think it feels like a wonderful, loving homage and take on instead of just copying, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Great
Yeah, it's so
stuff.
much fun.
And I feel like for a 1997 or a 1998 movie, rather, I feel like the effects hold up pretty well. There's a few shots where it's kind of like the CGI is a little janky, but a lot of it actually looks pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, especially given that a lot of it, especially towards the end, is really used stylistically, and there are times when they are using other things instead of the CGI to kind of try to, like, some of those shots of Mary Beth walking through the locker room where it's just her, but they're using just shadows to evoke tentacles all over the locker room. And it's pure style, right? Because none of it really looks like those shadows are actually being generated from tentacles in the real space. But it's such a cool effect. It just looks awesome. I love that stuff. Like this movie is not afraid to let the reality become stylized a little bit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It doesn't feel like it has to stay completely grounded.
No, it's like you said, it's just looks like they're just having a lot of fun with it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That's kind of the basis of this,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
that's really cool. Also playing on that very Kevin Williamson, like, but now actually like found an actress to get naked, you know, and so you're in this weird spot of like the pretty girl's naked, but
Well,
like
it's interesting though because almost a little bit like the gore from the last one, you really don't see quite as much as you sort of feel like you do.
right, yeah, no, you're right. Like it's and then to the addition because that's she's nude in the scene with the tentacles, right?
Yes, but we
Yeah.
only see her from a long shot with carefully placed shadows.
Right. So like they're using these shadows in the nude scene.
Hmm.
So you're like you have two things going on, right? Like you've got the oh well, you got the naked girl, but then you also have like the weird
Yeah.
tentacles. So it's like hard to be attracted to the naked girl when like she's a monster,
Or,
you know.
or at the very least, we're generating conflicting feelings here.
Yes. And so
Yes.
it's just playing with all of that.
Hmm.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And then the idea of just like leaning into like the old school like gym bleachers and how they
Yeah.
like collapse and all that stuff that like was kind of going with it's it was still there, not like the Jiffy Pop thing,
Hmm.
but like it was still kind of getting near the end of like gyms like that, right? With like
Is it? I wonder. I guess it's been a while since I've been in a high school gym. I kind of assumed that a lot of them still have bleachers like that.
it they do have retractable bleachers, but they're a different style, right? Like it's not
They're a
that
little slicker,
a little
probably more
slicker, right?
plastic
Where
and
it
less
doesn't
wood.
feel like it could like actually trap a monster and like
Mm.
all that,
Well,
like that.
for safety reasons, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that was it was this very old, highly mechanical, like
Hmm.
kind of retractable bleacher that was very much like, which
Yeah.
that's not how they work now, right? Like they can
Right.
retract and expand, but they stack up differently. Like there's just it's technology is improved, right?
Yeah.
You can still
Well,
track
yeah.
bleachers.
They would
Yeah,
also right now have like safety sensors that make sure that nobody's back
correct. And
there.
so like just to just like lean into that thing that was
Hmm.
like I mean it is kind of a
No,
scary thing, like the
yeah.
fact that like
It's great, and it's another perfect example of the way this movie layers two completely different styles together, which is one is this alien invasion action adventure, and the other is it's a high school movie where things are happening in a high school to high schoolers in ways that feel, if a little heightened, at least recognizable.
yeah,
Whereas like in Scream, for example, like none of the school stuff feels like anything other than sort of just a place for things to happen. It doesn't feel like these are actual high schoolers meaningfully going to high school to me. But that's fine.
yeah.
It's not what the movie's about. Whereas
No,
in
and
this one, it
they take
matters, right?
these very real things like football practice becomes a little bit scary when it kind of dials up, right?
Yeah,
Like, and the coach is amazing, right? Like
yeah. Robert
the
Patrick's
scene where
fine.
he's just standing there in the sprinklers, like
Uh huh.
early on, and you're not really sure. Like we've seen it, so we know why he's doing it, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
like so strange.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, he's cast in this, based on like, he had been in Terminator 2 already, and so
Right.
he kind of like poor Robert Patrick. Not that I think he had any trouble finding work, but I think that there was a long time after Terminator 2 where all anybody wanted him to do is show up and be creepy like he was in Terminator 2.
Yeah. So that's great. And then there's the play on,
Oh,
you know,
I'm sorry, one last note on that bit. One of the amazing things that this movie does do, though, is draw creepiness out of him not acting like that. Because they start with him being the hard ass, angry, shouty coach, but then when he's turned, he doesn't act like that. He acts nice
yeah.
after that. And so we get creeped out by him acting like a normal, nice, friendly guy.
Yeah. So that turn is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
There's also that like, the hot teacher, was it Famp Jansen?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Femke. Yeah, I thought it was Femke, but I don't know for sure now
it
that I
might be.
forgot.
I'm not
Um.
sure.
So the Wikipedia helpfully has Dutch pronunciation with symbols that I don't know how to interpret.
So it's one of
I'm
those.
guessing it's Femke based on
Famke.
this, but
Yeah. So Famke Jansen. And so there's like, that's a thing in high school, right? Because like
mm,
as you get older and teachers start to get younger, there's sort of
mm-hmm.
this like,
Well, we get
oh,
such
you can actually think your teachers are hot, right?
yeah,
Like
well,
that's a
but we
thing. And they
also
like,
get the incredible dynamic though, because like she before she's turned is like, physically beautiful, but she's very sort of reserved and kind of soft spoken and kind of hesitant and mousy in her demeanor before that. But we get see this is where again this movie just has some texture in places that a movie like I Know What You Did Last Summer doesn't. So like the whole dynamic between her and Josh Hartnett's character, where she can recognize that he is actually a very smart kid who is underachieving and being a troublemaker almost out of spite, and she's trying to reach out to him to kind of, can't I convince you to turn your skills in another direction? And he deflects with sort of crudeness in a way that she's not offended so much as it hurts her feelings that he
right.
would act that way to her. And then when she reacts that way, we see him going like, "Oh shit, that doesn't feel good." I feel bad. And then so of course for then her to get the alien glow up and come back and be the one that is talking dirty to him produces this really cool like friction and like him realizing what he would sort of actually rather is her be like she was,
Yeah.
and so even though he ends up like decapitating her, she's fine apparently afterwards.
Some of that
She
is almost
regenerates because she's an alien, but then when the aliens leave, she's still okay. Apparently,
yes. The
she wears
final
a scarf though.
yeah, the final sequence is so silly
Yeah.
that you can't even take it seriously.
Well,
Like
like for
what is a mechanism that like, okay, like you said, she can be decapitated, regenerate, and then the aliens leave and she's fine even though they took over her whole body. Like none of that makes any sense and
well,
you don't care.
but I think that they so are aware of that they put in the visual joke that when she is returned to her old sort of demeanor, but she's watching Josh Hartnett, who's now playing football, she's wearing a scarf around her neck, where like she's trying to cover a scar or something,
Yes.
which I think is
I
funny.
feel like Josh Hartnett becomes a football player. Like
Well,
all of it is
so
so
he,
silly, but I mean, it all like. Go
so
ahead.
here's the like this is I think important to the ending because I mentioned, name checked the Breakfast Club earlier, and we talked about this when we watched the Breakfast Club, but one of sort of the most derided parts of that movie today is this feeling like they had to make over Ali Sheedy's character, that she has to become like a normal girl at the end, and that's portrayed in the movie as like a good thing, as a victory, that she's been rescued from her awfulness. Whereas in this one, we have the Clea Duvall character who kind of gets that treatment here. But in this one, it feels like a joke about that, because
Yeah.
at the same time, every other character is also getting kind of that treatment. Because we have the former football player who's now becoming I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to try doing things I'm not good at guy. And then we have the burnout who's now a football player, which is such an odd, because the whole thing was established that he was ambitious and super smart, but he was turning his life to like life of crime. And so what does he do when he turns around? He becomes a football player. We
Right.
have the queen bee, who is now much more modestly dressed but taking her journalism seriously. We have the underappreciated, ignored, beat up nerd who is now a celebrity and confident. So like everybody's getting their sort of like reversal,
Right.
which feels like it's deliberate, but it's also like it's set up. You know what I mean? Like in a lot of these cases, like you sort of you kind of buy it, like not that it feels like natural or normal, but that like it doesn't feel like it comes completely out of nowhere.
Correct. But it still feels silly.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a joke, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Not silly and like I'm deriding it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, it's just so like, okay, this is all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
you're along for the ride because like you said, it's a joke and it's funny and
mm,
it's a really it's just such a different ending than like I didn't even remember all that stuff happened at the end, right? Like
mm,
I remembered a lot of the pieces and the water and the bleachers and the queen alien and all that
mm-hmm.
stuff, but like for it to like close out and was like, wait, what? Yeah. No, this is
Mm,
good. Yeah.
yeah. Um, let's talk a little bit about the cast, just because done that about the other two, but also just like Josh Hartnett. It's so fun that he's finally kind of come back into being in major movies again. After like he had this teen heartthrob career and then kind of went away for 15 years.
Yeah.
And now he's back in leading movies again, and he's fun. Um, it was kind of given that I had just so recently enjoyed him in Oppenheimer and then in Trap, um, to go back and watch him in this and just go and say, oh yeah, he really was actually good.
I forgot that was him in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, he's the other teacher at the school that
Yeah.
he starts working at.
I just looked it up. I was like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, that is him. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like until you sort of realize what he looks like now, you wouldn't necessarily guess that it was him, because he has, his face is kind of filled out quite a bit, and you know, he looks older, but at the same time, you can kind of see it there. His face is just kind of shaped a little differently now, which I didn't recognize him in Oppenheimer until I was told that it was him, but then I was like, oh yeah, I liked him, and then in Trap, he's the lead.
Yeah.
And it's such a fun role. Did you see Trap?
I have not yet.
Oh well, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, and then of course we got Elijah Wood before he was in the Lord of the Rings movies. He had of course been in other things, like he had been in movies before this, but this was early on. One of the rare film appearances by Jon Stewart. Um, but then you got Piper Laurie, BB Newirth, like lots of fun character actors in here to be some of the teachers. I'm just looking at the cast list here on Wikipedia, and two of the listed actors is Summer Phoenix as "Fuck You Girl" and John Abrahams as "Fuck You Boy." Only with the little symbols instead of spelling out the word. But like Chris McDonald is Casey's dad. Um, so like it's a fun cast in here, and it's just everyone's having a lot of good time, fun, and again, it is taking what is already kind of a fun sounding pitch of this idea of like the Breakfast Club meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but then also just actually giving all the little plot beats such a cool specificity to them, right? It's not just painting by the numbers, it's not just following the tropes. It's like, let's actually make each of these scenes feel like it's considered and crafted. Like just like the details of the way the water works and the idea that the drug is poison for it, and just details of all the different characters. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, really
All
enjoyed it.
right. Okay, so if we're ready to move on then to our pitch for next time, you had suggested that, well, why don't you go ahead and say what you were thinking?
So I pitched that since I was just recently, not this weekend, but was it last weekend already? Yeah.
Yeah.
Last weekend I was in Boston. We went to
Hmm.
Cape Cod Summer League.
Yes.
So
And I live in Boston for anyone who didn't
yes,
know that
I
already.
live in Boston. So
Hmm.
we hung out in Boston,
Yeah.
and it just got me thinking about like movies where Boston is kind of the key setting, right?
Hmm.
Like it's like The Departed, The Town.
Hmm.
Um, I don't remember what else I suggested.
You had
Good
mentioned
Will Hunting. Yeah.
yeah. I was definitely. I think my first thought had been a little bit hesitant, partly just because I didn't want to do like three crime dramas. Um, but that said, I pulling up a list of films set in Boston, which I can share with you right now. This is on Wikipedia, but let me just send it over in chat so we can be looking at the same list.
Yep.
Um, So there are actually quite a bit of interesting variations that we could look at in terms of these things being set in Boston. Like, for example, Spotlight, set in Boston. Um, the original, The Out of Towners, and the remake, set in Boston. The Holdovers, which is a lot of fun. There's mostly set in the school, which is in New England broadly, but they do go to Boston for a notable part of the movie. Some of the movies on this list that we're looking at are like, it's basically any movie where a plot description would say Boston at some point. So some of them it's like a very brief or small amount of the movie, but there's quite a number to choose from. In fact, I Know What You Did Last Summer is on this list because that's Jennifer Love Hewitt's character goes to college in Boston. So,
Oh yeah.
yes. So there's quite a few that we could work with here, but I feel like I would like to see us choose like a variety. You know what I mean?
Hmm. I felt like I had sent a variety because I sent like Good Will Hunting and
Mm-hmm.
like Gone Baby Gone, which are two very different movies.
Yeah.
But Fever
It's,
Pitch, also
mm-hmm.
very different movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So
I think
yeah, Good
we
Will
do this
Hunting,
and
Fever
then
Pitch. Yeah. So
yeah,
I sort of like in my head, Departed, Gone Baby Gone, The Town, Mystic River, all Manchester by the Sea, all feel like sad crime dramas to me. So I was hoping
I don't actually want to do all of those.
I was
Yeah.
going to say let's not do more than one of that kind of movie if we want to even do any of those. I don't know. I'm just maybe not in the mood for a
No,
bunch of those anyway. But
totally. I would if I had to pick,
mhm.
I think I would like to rewatch The Town
Okay.
because The Departed comes up all over the place, right?
Mhm.
Like it's kind of a classic Boston movie. I mean, obviously, like they use the music from it at Red Sox games, like
Mm-hmm.
it. But the town, I don't know. That's one I haven't seen in a while, and I've felt like it actually does a really good job
Mm-hmm.
of like using Boston as a backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would like I would like to watch Good Will Hunting again, but I'm
Yeah.
not hung up on that. I don't want to watch Mystic River. I was just saying like
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
think
people
neither of us actually liked that movie very much when it first came out.
no.
It's just such a bummer.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
Spotlight's not the happiest movie either.
yeah, I think Spotlight is feels very different in its approach to me. Like it's about a sad thing, but it's also about people like trying to like actually uncover and do good stuff, and it's like the journalism as opposed to like everybody's terrible. Let's just all do terrible things to each other.
Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
Boondock Saints was kind of fun, but I don't necessarily know that I want need to watch that as part of this.
hmm.
Um,
So I did mention the Out of Towners, which is a comedy. It's a Jack
yeah.
Lemmon comedy.
Like the original.
The 1971, and then there was the 1999 remake that's also, it's got the same basic plot. But Jack Lemmon and Sandy Dennis are in the 1970 Neil Simon Out of Towners.
I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could do the town, and I would be open to Goodwill Hunting, and then the Out of Towners.
Yeah.
All right.
Those sound good.
Well, I cannot vouch for how much any of those actually feel like Boston to me. We'll see. I didn't watch them in that lens originally, but we'll see.
Nice. And then
All
I
right.
think we already kind of pre-talked about next time we're going to go to some more classic Hollywood films, right?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind, just because we haven't done any like that in a while.
Yeah. I think we
Um,
can just we don't
I'll
have to pick movies right now, but we can kind of
yeah,
agree that that will be the next round.
yeah. All right, great. So I think we'll leave it there then for now. Thank you everybody for listening and or watching, and in the meantime, watch good movies.
Good movies.